"Prepare a communication channel," Zixa commanded, her voice steadying as she regained her composure. "We need to gather intelligence on these potential allies." The turning tide. As the battle raged on, it became clear that humanity was not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for something greater, a chance to reclaim their place in the galaxy and liberate those oppressed by the Empire. Sarah felt a surge of hope as she watched her crew execute their maneuvers flawlessly. Each ship was a testament to human ingenuity and resilience, a symbol of what they could achieve when united against tyranny. "Incoming message from our allies," Kano announced suddenly. "Patch it through," Sarah ordered. The screen flickered to life, revealing representatives from various alien species, each one bearing scars from past encounters with the Empire. "We stand with you, humans," one representative declared boldly. "Together, we can end this oppression once and for all." Sarah's heart swelled with pride at this unexpected alliance. They were no longer alone in this fight. They had allies willing to risk everything for freedom. Facing reality. Back on Zix's flagship, reality began to sink in. The realization that humanity was no longer an insignificant threat sent waves of panic through her crew. "Admiral," an officer stammered, "we're losing more ships by the minute. Their tactics are unpredictable." Zixa clenched her jaw in frustration. She couldn't afford to show weakness, not now when everything was at stake. "Rally our forces," she commanded fiercely. "We will not be defeated by these humans. Prepare for a counteroffensive." As her officers scrambled to follow orders, Zixa felt a mix of anger and determination boiling within her. She would not allow this insurrection to undermine everything the Empire had built over millennia. The battle intensifies. With renewed vigor, both fleets clashed in an epic display of firepower and strategy. Beams of energy lit up space as missiles streaked toward their targets, each side fighting tooth and nail for victory. Sarah guided her fleet with precision, weaving through enemy fire while coordinating strikes against key Imperial vessels. "Focus fire on their flagship," she shouted over the din of battle. As energy beams converged on Zix's ship, she felt a sense of urgency wash over her. They were losing ground fast. If they didn't regroup soon, all would be lost. A moment of reflection. In the midst of chaos, both leaders found themselves reflecting on what brought them here, their motivations and desires driving them forward into this conflict. For Zixa, it was about preserving power and maintaining control over an empire that had stood for millennia. For Sarah, it was about freedom, the right for every species to live without oppression. As explosions rocked space around them, each leader prepared for what lay ahead. An uncertain future where victory was not guaranteed but worth fighting for nonetheless. This concludes part 2 of the story. The next part will further explore both sides' strategies as they adapt to each other's tactics in this high-stakes conflict between humanity and the Galactic Empire. The Turning Point. Title: Galactic Empire Stunned. Could this really be a human fleet? A battle of wits. The battle raged on, a chaotic dance of destruction in the cold void of space. Admiral Zixa stood at the helm of her flagship, her 6 eyes darting between the tactical displays and the chaos unfolding outside. The once proud Imperial fleet was now a disorganized mess, with ships breaking formation and retreating under the relentless assault from the human vessels. "Reinforce the right flank," Zixa shouted, her voice cutting through the noise of panic on the bridge. "We cannot allow them to encircle us." Her officers scrambled to follow orders, but it was clear that fear had taken hold. The humans were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting with a purpose that had ignited their resolve. Zixa felt a knot of anxiety tighten in her abdomen. She had underestimated them, and now they were paying the price. The human resolve. On the human flagship, Captain Sarah Chen surveyed the battlefield with a calm demeanor that belied the chaos around her. The Imperial ships were faltering, and she could feel the tide turning in their favor. "Keep up the pressure," Sarah commanded, her voice steady. Target their engines to cripple their ability to retreat. Her crew responded with fierce determination, firing shot after shot at the nearest Imperial ship. Each explosion sent ripples of triumph through the human fleet. They were no longer a ragtag group of misfits. They were a unified force, fighting for freedom against an oppressive regime. "Captain," Kano said, his voice filled with urgency, "we've received reports from our allies. They're ready to join us in this fight." The bridge crew tensed, watching as the massive Imperial warships loomed ever larger on their screens. Any moment now. A blinding flash erupted as the lead Imperial ship opened fire, its energy weapons lancing towards the human fleet. This was it, the moment of truth. "Now," Sarah bellowed in an instant. The facade of weakness fell away. The patchwork hulls of the human ships shimmered and dissolved, revealing sleek, advanced vessels unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Shields snapped into place effortlessly, absorbing the Imperial barrage. "Return fire," Sarah commanded, her voice calm, but filled with steel. "Show them what humanity is truly capable of." The human fleet erupted with a dazzling display of firepower, beams of concentrated energy, missiles that phased in and out of reality, and swarms of autonomous drone fighters. The Imperial ships, caught completely off guard, didn't stand a chance as explosions blossomed in the void of space. Sarah allowed herself a moment of grim satisfaction. This was only the beginning. The real battle was yet to come, but for now, humanity had made its statement. The galaxy would never be the same again. This concludes part 1 of the story. The next part will delve deeper into the Imperial fleet's confusion and the human fleet's strategic plan, setting the stage for an epic confrontation between two vastly different civilizations. Unexpected revelations. Title: Galactic Empire stunned. Could this really be a human fleet? The chaos unfolds. Admiral Zixa stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Her mandibles clicked rapidly in agitation as she processed the unfolding chaos. The human fleet, which moments ago had appeared to be nothing more than a collection of space junk, had transformed before their very eyes into a formidable force. "Impossible," she hissed, her compound eyes struggling to comprehend the data streaming across the screen. The readings defied all logic and expectations. The Seventh Fleet, the pride of the Empire, was being decimated by weapons and technology that shouldn't exist. "Admiral," a panicked voice cut through the din of the bridge. "We've lost contact with the Dreadnought Sixer." Zix's heart raced. The Dreadnought Sixer was one of their most advanced ships, equipped with state-of-the-art weaponry and shields. If it had been destroyed so quickly, what hope did the rest of the fleet have? "Re-establish contact," she ordered sharply, her voice rising above the chaos. "Get me a status report on all remaining ships." As her officers scrambled to comply, Zix's mind raced. How had they underestimated humanity so thoroughly? The humans had always been seen as a primitive species, barely capable of interstellar travel. Yet here they were, wielding technology that rivaled their own. The human fleet's strategy. Meanwhile, aboard the lead ship of the human fleet, Captain Sarah Chen watched the Imperial ships crumble under their firepower with grim satisfaction. The plan had worked perfectly. Their years of preparation had paid off. "Status report," Sarah barked, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "All systems operational," her ESOM Kano replied, a grin spreading across his face. "We've taken out 3 Imperial ships already, and their formations are breaking apart." "Good," Sarah said, a fierce determination igniting in her chest. "Maintain pressure on their flanks. We need to keep them off balance." As they engaged in battle, Sarah reflected on how far humanity had come since those early days of space exploration. They had learned from every defeat and every mistake. The technology they now wielded was born from desperation and innovation, a fusion of science and creativity that had allowed them to rise against their oppressors. A new alliance. Back on Zix's flagship, confusion reigned supreme. Officers shouted conflicting reports as they struggled to make sense of the situation. "Admiral, we have incoming transmissions from our outer colonies," one officer announced breathlessly. "They report seeing strange ships resembling those of the humans." Zix's eyes widened. "What do you mean? Are there more human fleets out there?" "It appears so," the officer replied, fear creeping into his voice. "They may have allies we weren't aware of." Zix's mind raced again as she considered this new information. If humanity had formed alliances with other species that had suffered under imperial rule, the consequences could be catastrophic for the Empire. Sarah's heart raced at the news. Allies from across the galaxy had rallied to their cause, each one eager to take down the Empire that had oppressed them for so long. "Excellent. Coordinate our next move with them," she instructed. "We need to strike hard and fast while we have the advantage." A new strategy. Back on Zix's flagship, desperation began to set in as she watched her fleet disintegrate before her eyes. The humans had proven more resourceful than anticipated, and their newfound alliances only complicated matters further. "Admiral," officer called out, "we're receiving communications from our colonies. They're reporting sightings of human ships in multiple systems." Zixa clenched her mandibles in frustration. The humans had spread their influence far and wide, and if they managed to unite other species against the Empire, it could spell disaster for her people. "Prepare a message for all Imperial forces," Zixa ordered. "We must regroup and strategize. We cannot allow ourselves to be divided." As she spoke, Zix's mind raced with thoughts of what could happen if they lost this battle. The Empire had always prided itself on its dominance. Losing to a species they considered inferior would shatter their reputation. An unexpected alliance. Meanwhile, Sarah's flagship was buzzing with excitement as reports came in from their allies. Various species, each with unique technologies and tactics, were eager to join forces against the Empire. "Captain," Kano exclaimed, pointing at a holographic display showing incoming ships from their allies. "They're here." Sarah's heart swelled with pride as she watched ships of various shapes and sizes arrive on the battlefield. Each vessel represented hope for those who had suffered under imperial rule. "Let's welcome them properly," Sarah said with determination. "All ships, prepare for coordinated attack." As they engaged in battle alongside their new allies, Sarah felt a sense of unity that transcended species lines. Together, they formed a powerful coalition against oppression, a force that could change the course of history. The fight intensifies. With renewed vigor, both sides clashed fiercely in the depths of space. Energy beams lit up the void as missiles streaked toward their targets. The human fleet fought valiantly alongside their allies, each ship working in harmony to dismantle Imperial defenses. Zixa watched in horror as more Imperial ships fell under the combined assault of human ingenuity and alien technology. Her once mighty fleet was crumbling before her eyes. "Reinforce our defenses," Zixa shouted desperately. "We must hold our position." But it was too late. Chaos reigned on her flagship as crew members scrambled to respond to multiple threats at once. A moment of reflection. As explosions lit up space around them, both leaders found themselves reflecting on what drove them into this conflict, their motivations and desires pushing them forward into an uncertain future. For Zixa, it was about preserving power and maintaining control over an empire that had stood for millennia. For Sarah, it was about freedom, the right for every species to live without oppression. In that moment of reflection amidst chaos, both leaders prepared for what lay ahead. An uncertain future where victory was not guaranteed but worth fighting for nonetheless. The turning point. Suddenly, an explosion rocked Zix's flagship as one of its engines took a direct hit from a concentrated energy beam fired by one of Sarah's allies. "Damage report," Zixa barked as alarms blared around her. "Critical damage to engine room 3, an officer shouted back over the noise. "We're losing power." Zixa felt a surge of panic rise within her as she realized just how dire their situation had become. The tide was turning against them faster than she could have ever imagined. "Prepare for emergency maneuvers," she ordered fiercely. "We will not go down without a fight." As Zixa rallied her crew for one last stand, Sarah felt a rush of adrenaline surge through her veins as well. This battle was not just about survival. It was about reclaiming their place in the galaxy. The chance to show that humanity would not be underestimated ever again. This concludes Part 3 of the story. In Part 4, we will delve deeper into both sides' strategies as they adapt to each other's tactics in this high-stakes conflict between humanity and the Galactic Empire. The Final Stand. Title: Galactic Empire Stunned. Could this really be a human fleet? The last line of defense. The battle had reached a fever pitch, and the void of space was alive with the sounds of destruction. Admiral Zixa stood resolute on the bridge of her flagship, her 6 eyes scanning the chaotic scene outside. The once mighty Imperial fleet was now a shadow of its former self, battered and broken by the relentless assault of the human coalition. Status report. Zixa barked, her voice cutting through the din of alarms and panicked shouts. "Admiral," officer replied, his voice trembling. "We've lost contact with over half our ships. The humans are exploiting our weaknesses." Zixa felt a surge of anger and frustration. How had it come to this? The Empire had ruled for millennia. Yet here they were, facing defeat at the hands of what they had deemed a primitive species. "Rally our forces," she commanded fiercely. "We will not fall today. Prepare to engage their flagship." The coalition united. Meanwhile, aboard the human flagship, Captain Sarah Chen could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins. They were on the brink of victory, but she knew better than to underestimate the Empire. Zixa was a formidable opponent, and desperation often led to unpredictable tactics. "Kano," Sarah said, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. "What's our status?" "All systems are operational," Kano replied. "We've taken out several key Imperial ships, but their flagship is still in play." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "We need to take it down. If we can cripple their command ship, we can demoralize their remaining forces." "Understood," Kano said, already relaying orders to the fleet. As they prepared for their final push, Sarah felt a sense of unity among her crew and allies. They were fighting not just for themselves but for every species that had suffered under Imperial rule. This battle was about more than just survival. It was about reclaiming dignity and freedom. The counterattack. Back on Zixa's flagship, she was formulating a desperate plan. The humans had proven themselves cunning and resourceful, but she would not let them have the last word. "Prepare for a counterattack," Zixa shouted. "We will show them that the Empire is not so easily defeated." Her officers scrambled to follow her orders as they readied their weapons for one last stand. Zixa knew that this might be their only chance to turn the tide of battle. As the Imperial ships repositioned themselves for an offensive strike, Sarah's fleet prepared to meet them head-on. The tension in the air was palpable as both sides braced for what could be the decisive moment in this conflict. The clashing forces. The two fleets collided in an explosion of light and sound that echoed through space. Energy beams crisscrossed as missiles streaked toward their targets, creating a chaotic ballet of destruction. "Focus fire on their flagship," Sarah commanded as she maneuvered her ship through enemy fire. Her crew responded with precision, pouring every ounce of firepower into Zixa's command ship. Explosions erupted around them as Imperial vessels fell one by one under the relentless assault. Zixa fought back fiercely, directing her remaining ships to retaliate against the human coalition. But despite her best efforts, it became increasingly clear that they were losing ground. A moment of truth. In the heat of battle, both leaders found themselves reflecting on what brought them here, their motivations driving them forward into this conflict. For Zixa, it was about preserving an empire built on conquest and power. For Sarah, it was about securing a future free from oppression. As explosions lit up space around them, each leader prepared for what lay ahead, an uncertain future where victory was not guaranteed but worth fighting for nonetheless. Suddenly, an alarm blared on Zixa's bridge as one of her officers shouted, "Admiral, we're losing power in multiple sectors." Zixa's heart raced as she realized just how dire their situation had become. The tide was turning against them faster than she could have ever imagined. "Reinforce our defenses," she shouted desperately. "We cannot falter now." But as more explosions rocked her flagship, Zixa felt despair creeping in. She had fought valiantly for her empire. Would it all end here? The unseen threat. In the vast expanse of the Milky Way, the Galactic Empire had reigned supreme for millennia. Their rule was absolute, their authority unquestioned. They had conquered and subjugated countless species, amassing unimaginable power and technology. The Empire's dominance was a testament to their superior engineering and strategic prowess. However, on the edge of their territory, a new and unexpected threat emerged. A fleet of ships, unlike any the Empire had ever seen, had appeared seemingly out of nowhere. The pulsing red dots on the holographic display before Admiral Zixa, the commander of the Imperial flagship, represented this enigmatic fleet. Her 6 eyes narrowed as she studied the data, her mandibles clicking in irritation. "What do you mean you can't identify them?" Admiral Zixa demanded, her voice low and menacing. The trembling Corin, her subordinate, quivered with each word. "Apologies, Admiral," the Corin stammered. "The ships don't match any known designs in our database. They appear to be primitive." Zixa's exoskeleton bristled at the word primitive. "Show me the hologram," she commanded. The holographic display zoomed in, revealing a mishmash of vessels that looked like they belonged in a museum rather than deep space. Their hulls were patchwork, collection of materials and designs that spoke of desperation rather than advanced engineering. Scans indicate their weapon systems are rudimentary at best, the Corin continued. Their shielding is practically non-existent. A low rumbling laugh escaped Zixa's throat. "Pathetic," she murmured, waving a clawed hand dismissively. "Identify their origin and crush them. I want to know who dares to challenge the Empire with such inadequacy." The orders were relayed, and a young officer approached her, antenna twitching nervously. "Admiral, we've identified the species. They are humans." The bridge fell silent. The word humans hung in the air like a bad omen. Zixa's exoskeleton bristled at the memory of their last encounter with the Earth dwellers. It had been decades ago, a minor skirmish on the fringes of Imperial space. The humans had been hopelessly outmatched, their technology laughably outdated, yet they fought with a ferocity she had never seen. Cornered animals with nothing to lose, Zixa murmured almost to herself. She shook off the memory, focusing on the present. The Empire had only grown stronger while the humans, well, looking at their ramshackle fleet, it was clear they hadn't progressed much. "Deploy the 7th Fleet," Zixa commanded. "Let's remind these humans of their place in the galaxy." As the orders were carried out, Zixa couldn't shake a niggling feeling of unease. Something about this didn't add up. Why would the humans, after all this time, venture so far from their home system with such an ill-equipped force? Little did she know, appearances could be deceiving. Aboard the lead ship of the human fleet, Captain Sarah Chen allowed herself a small smile as she watched the Imperial vessels approach. The plan was working perfectly. Years of preparation, painstaking work to create the illusion of weakness, were about to pay off. "They've taken the bait," her EXOM Kono reported with a grin. "Sensors show they've only deployed a fraction of their forces." Sarah nodded, her eyes never leaving the tactical display. "Overconfidence," she muttered. "The Empire's greatest weakness." She tapped her comlink. "All ships, maintain formation. Remember your training. Today we fight not just for Earth but for every species that suffered under Imperial rule." A chorus of affirmatives echoed through the channel. Sarah felt a swell of pride. This crew, this fleet represented the best of humanity. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, all volunteers who had worked tirelessly to give their species a fighting chance against the galactic oppressors. Weapons hot, Sarah ordered as the Imperial ships drew closer. Let them fire first. We need to maintain the illusion until the last possible moment. The final push. Back on Sarah's flagship, hope surged through her crew as they saw the Imperial forces faltering under their combined assault. Now is our moment, Sarah shouted with fierce determination. Let's finish this fight once and for all. With renewed vigor, they launched everything they had at Zix's flagship. Energy beams struck true as missiles found their marks, each hit sending shockwaves through space. As Sarah watched from the bridge, she felt a mix of triumph and sadness wash over her. This battle represented not just a fight against tyranny, but also a loss of life on both sides, a reminder that war always came with a heavy cost. The climactic moment, just when it seemed like victory was within reach for Sarah's fleet, Zixa made one last desperate move. Prepare to engage self-destruct protocols, she ordered fiercely. If we cannot win today, we will take them down with us. Her crew hesitated at first but soon realized that there was no other option left. They would go down fighting rather than surrendering to what they perceived as inferior beings. Admiral, officer cried out in panic. We can't do this. We'll destroy ourselves. Zix's eyes hardened as she faced her crew. We fight until our last breath. For the Empire. As alarms blared throughout the ship signaling imminent destruction, Sarah caught wind of Zix's plan through intercepted communications. No, we have to stop them, Sarah shouted urgently. With time running out and chaos all around them, both leaders faced their final moments. One determined to save her empire at any cost, and another striving to protect lives even amidst war's devastation.